Sitting is a fundamental part of yoga practice. We sit in the beginning of each class to chant Om. We sit for meditation. We sit for pranayama. As in all the asanas, in the seated poses, we need to find stability, sthira, ease, sukham, and a sense of balance and equilibrium. Sitting in this way requires a degree of flexibility in the joints of your ankles, your knees, and your hips, as well as strength and mobility in the spine and the paraspinal muscles that support it. In the seated postures, the spine and the trunk have to lift up tall as the legs press down firmly into the ground. This moving in two directions can be quite challenging if you have some tightness in any of the areas I just talked about. In addition, those of you with tight or short hamstrings and tight groins may not be able to sit in this way. For this reason, practitioners often need to add height under the buttocks in these poses so the legs can descend firmly as the spine ascends upward. In all of the seated postures, the sacrum moves into the body. The abdomen moves back to support the lumbar, and the trunk lifts up to remain perpendicular to the floor, without a dome shape in the upper or the lower back. So as you sit in each posture, when you notice that the back is rounding, or the chest is collapsing or caving in, and or the abdominal organs feel like they're getting squished or crushed, so that you can't sit exactly upright, you have to add more height under your buttocks until it becomes possible for you to sit up straight and tall. As the position of the legs changes in each pose, the amount of height you need will vary. Therefore, I strongly encourage you to practice svadhyaya, self-observation, self-study, as you experiment and explore the seated poses without a teacher there to tell you to just take another blanket or sit up on a bolster. The final stages of all the poses today is forward extension, but in order to properly bend forward, a stable seat and an extended spine are essential. For this reason, in the video today, we'll focus on the alignment required in the earlier stages of these poses. I encourage those of you who regularly practice the full forward extension of each pose to do so here as well, either while you watch the video or come back after doing these preliminary stages and do the complete forward extensions of each pose. This video will focus on the upright stage, where we're sitting upright, the Urdhva stage, the raised arm stage, and the concave stage, where you're holding the feet and the front spine is fully extended and lifted as the upper back moves deeply into the body. In some asanas, we will add a parshva or twisted stage as well. As Tadasana, the mountain pose, is the foundation for all the seated poses, Dandasana, the staff pose, is the foundation for all the sitting postures. We'll return to Dandasana between each and every pose. To begin, sit with the knees bent and adjust the buttocks by pulling the flesh back and up and away to the sides so that you can feel sharply the two sitting bones that form the base of the pose. Then extend both legs one at a time. Extend from the buttock bones to the heels, spread the toes, and extend the heels forward. Lift the front chest up, move the sacrum in, move the bottom ribs back as you spread the collarbones, spread the chest, and lift all the way from the belly button to the sternum to the crown of your head. You can also separate the feet a little bit if you have tightness in your lower back. And if you have tight hamstrings, you may find that you slouch when you try to straighten the legs or sit upright. In this case, take a blanket, take a block, sit on some height so that you can firmly press the legs down as you extend the spine. In this way, the legs remain parallel to the floor and the spine is perpendicular to the floor. For those of you that are particularly tight in the hamstrings, sitting on the edge of a chair seat can be extremely helpful. The gravitation helps to move the thighs down, move the legs toward the floor. You can hold the seat of the chair to lift the trunk up, take the shoulders back and down away from the ears. So we're going to sit now in Dandasana, starting again with bent knees, extending both legs out to the front. The hands here press down by the sides of the waist. It's important to try and get the whole palm to press down. And if you have difficulty doing that or the shoulders slouch when you try to do that, using bricks under the hands can be helpful, or as I'm doing here in the video, pressing into the blanket so that the chest gets well lifted, the shoulders move back, the collarbones spread, and the back ribs move strongly from the back of the chest to the front. The legs extend from the buttock bones to the heels. As you raise the arms up, the legs continue to press down, and you see it's difficult to maintain that as you take the arms up to Urdhva Hasta, raised arms position in Dandasana. From here, extend, hold forward, hold the outer edges of the feet, pull with the arms, push with the legs, and pull the back ribs strongly into your back. Continue to lift from the belly button to the sternum to the crown of your head to elongate the front spine to the maximum, and then come back up and sit in Dandasana. I'll change direction here so that you can see from another angle. In Dandasana, extend the legs. You can keep the feet apart as needed or join the inner edges of the feet. Press the thighs down, the shins down, and extend the heels away so that the heels extend sharply forward. The mounds of the feet are active, the big toe mounds stretch forward, and the outer edges of the feet turn back. From here, bring the legs in so that the soles of the feet touch. The heels move in towards the perineum, and the sacrum moves forward towards the heels. We're coming to a pose called Baddha Konasana, the bound angle pose. In this stage of the pose, the hands hold under the foot, the spine lifts up, the shoulders roll back, collarbones spread wide, the inner thighs extend toward the inner knees, and both thighs roll from the inside out. This action opens the groins, creates space in the groins for the legs to descend more toward the floor. As the inner thighs extend toward the knees, pull the outer thighs back away from the knees and into your hips. Pull on the feet to lift the trunk, lift the chest, roll the shoulders back and down. Now, some of you may find, again, if you are stiffer or tighter, that when you bring the soles of the feet together, something like this happens. The knees are well raised, the back rounds and hunches forward, and you're unable to keep those double actions of the thighs pressing down and the trunk lifting up. So here, again, as we did in Dandasana, sitting on some height can be helpful. You want to start Baddha Konasana in such a way that the thighs, inner groins, and the inner knees, the thighs and the knees are parallel to one another. Eventually, the legs will move to the floor, but you want to start at least parallel. So sitting on some height can help you to achieve that so that you don't start with the knees up like ski slopes. Now again, we bring the soles of the feet together, press down the sitting bones, extend the inner thighs toward the inner knees, pull the outer knees back towards the outer hips. I move the heels in toward the perineum and the sacrum out toward the heels to open the groins more. Interlacing the fingers around the feet, I pull back on the legs, take the shoulders back, broaden the collarbones, and lift the sides of the trunk. I hold the outer edges of both knees to come back and sit again in Dandasana. Sitting in Dandasana, press the hands down to lift the trunk up. Roll the fronts of the thighs in, the back of the thighs out, and extend forward from the buttock bones to the heels. The entire length of the leg should press down, against which the spine lifts up tall. Now from Dandasana, we're going to take the legs wide, 4 to 4.5 feet wide, into Upavishta Konasana, or the seated angle pose. In this pose, again, press the hands down, lift the sternum up, move the back ribs in, and roll the armpits from the back to the front. Extend the inner legs forward so that the ankles line up with each other. Many times the inner ankles are shorter than the outer ankles. The inner leg is shorter than the outer leg. So stretch through the inner leg and make the ankles like 2 tracks. Press the hands down to lift the trunk. Press the thighs down to move as much of the back of the leg into the floor as possible. Again, showing for those who are stiffer, you may try to take the legs apart and you see the knees bend, the chest slumps or hunches forward. In this case, you take a blanket and see how I use the blanket here on a kind of like a diamond shape on the angle. So I sit with it with that corner between my legs so that the thighs are able to descend down to the floor. They don't get stuck on the edge of a blanket. So whether you're using the blankets or not, you need to continue to press the hands down to lift the trunk, roll the shoulders back and down, and move the back ribs deeply into your back. Move the sacrum toward the legs and pull the thighs up towards the sacrum. As you press the legs down, reach the arms up. Against the press down of the legs, lift the trunk up and come forward to Padangushta, Upavishta Konasana. Means holding the big toes and making that concave back in your shape in your back, so that the back ribs move sharply into the back and the front spine extends from the belly button to the crown of the head. As you continue to hold the toes and pull on the toes, push the feet into the hands, pull the hands back against the feet, and lift the spine maximum length. Now bring the legs back together and come to sitting one more time in Dandasana. Press the hands down. You see here extend through the legs. You see I folded a blanket in this direction. This blanket is helpful for me for the next pose, which is Janu Shirshasana. Janu is knee, Shirsha is head. It's the head to knee pose. See how I bring one leg into Baddha Konasana here with the heel against the same groin. In this case, the right heel is against the right groin and the right toes touch the left thigh. I turn the abdomen so that the sternum comes out over the straight leg. Reach the arms up and pull back against the leg again to make the back concave. I stretch the left leg forward as I move the right hip back and keep the hip parallel to the knee. Switching sides, I bring the left foot in so that the left heel comes to the left groin and the left toes touch up against the right inner thigh. There's a straight line, a parallel line from the hip to the knee in the bent leg. I turn the abdomen so that the sternum faces out over the straight leg, raise the arms, and keeping that length from the belly button to the crown of the head, I extend forward, hold the foot. I pull on the leg with the hands, push the foot into the hands, and extend the spine again maximum from the belly button to the crown of the head, pulling the back ribs deeply into my back, from the back to the front. Returning now to Dandasana. We prepare for the next pose, which is Virasana, the hero pose. You can sit between the legs in this pose, or you can sit on some height if you need for this pose. In either case, come to kneeling, bring the fingers behind the knees, and sit back so that the calf muscle moves away from the back of the knee. You're sitting between the heels, and adjust the knees so that you pull the shin bone toward the kneecap, make a little space at the root of the knee. Interlace the fingers, press the buttock bones down, press the shins, ankles, tops of the feet down, and extend the palms to the ceiling for Parvatasana. Switch the interlace of your fingers and continue to press the palms up to lengthen the trunk up away from the floor as you press the shins, ankles, tops of the feet, and buttock bones down into the floor. From Virasana, now take the legs back to Dandasana, press the hands down, lift the trunk up, extend from the buttock bones to the heels, and now bring your left leg into Virasana. One leg is now in Virasana, one leg is Dandasana. And you see I put a blanket under the straight leg hip so that the hips can stay level. You may need to do the same. This pose is Trianga Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana. It's 3 limbs facing 1 limb pose. I raise the arms up, continue to press both legs down, and I'm using a belt here to come forward and hold the foot. This way I can keep the arms straight, pull on the foot with the belt, stretch the leg into the belt, and move the back ribs strongly into my back. Keeping the hips level, rolling the shoulders back and down. And then switch legs. You see I switch the blanket to the other buttock. The key here is that we keep that equilibrium, that balance between the two buttock bones, so that the pelvis doesn't tilt. So you may need a block, a second blanket, but experiment, be courageous. Again, the abdomen turns so the sternum is over the straight leg. I raise the arms to Urdhva Hasta, come forward, hold the foot or the belt. Do you see how the arms are straight here? And I extend the leg into the belt, pull back with the arms, roll the shoulders back, and extend the front spine all the way from the belly button to the crown of the head. All the time pulling the back ribs deeply toward the front chest. Now come out of the pose and return to the center. You're going to sit now, you're going to come to a squatting pose, Malasana, the garland pose. If you know you can squat with your heels on the floor and your feet parallel, you'll do that. Otherwise, as I'm doing here, you can roll a blanket and put your heels on the blanket, or as I'm going to do here, use a block. But the idea here is that the feet stay parallel and the heels press down. So showing with a block, you'll find your necessary requirement for your Malasana, the garland pose. So I place the heels on my support or into the floor if I'm not using a support and squat down. As I descend the buttocks, I pull the shin bone up toward the knee, the hamstrings back away from the knee, and hold around the top of the shin and pull back to lift the chest and roll the shoulders back and down. The shin bone lifts up as the buttocks goes down. The trunk lifts up as the heels and the buttocks press toward the floor. Then I extend the arms forward, roll the shoulders back, broaden the collarbones, and move the back ribs strongly in toward the front ribs. I feel the knees, the front of the thighs against the front of the abdomen as the abdomen lifts up. And come back down, extend both legs, and sit in Dandasana. I'm going to keep the block here. You could use a blanket or a couple of I'm going to use a couple of blankets. You could keep the block here. You could use a couple of blankets. You could even sit on a bolster for this pose, which is Marichyasana. There are several Marichyasana variations. It's named after the sage Marichi. So beginning in Dandasana once again, and you see I press the hands down now into the blankets so that I can lift the trunk up, keep the trunk well lifted and perpendicular to the floor as I bend my left knee into Marichyasana, into Malasana. So one leg is in Malasana, one is in Dandasana. I hold the shin and pull back and lift up. Then I raise the left arm up, hook the elbow inside the knee, and turn toward the straight leg. I use the connection of the knee and the arm to turn. Then I bring the right leg in, hook the elbow against the knee, walk the left hand around behind me, roll the shoulders back, and turn toward the straight leg. Coming back again, I bring the left leg into Marichyasana or Malasana, the right leg into Dandasana, hold the shin, pull back, and lift up. The shin bone lifts up toward the knee, the hamstring pulls back away from the knee, the shoulders move back and down. From here, I raise the arms up to Urdhva Hasta. Exhale, come forward. I'm using a belt again. You can hold the foot if you can keep the shoulders back and the concaveness in your upper back, creating the concave shape of Marichyasana 1. Pull on the belt, push with the legs, pull the shoulders way back, back ribs way in, and ascend from the pubic bone to the navel, to the sternum, to the crown of your head. Switching sides. Bring the right leg in, hold around the top of the shin. Pull back and lift up. Pull the shin bone up toward the knee, the hamstring back away from the knee. Set your belt up to prepare for coming forward. The outer heel lines up to the outer hip here. And then outer sitting bone, really, the outer hip. Then I raise the arms to Urdhva Hasta. Exhale, come forward. Hold the belt. And with straight arms, as I pull against the foot, with the belt, I stretch the leg into the belt, move the back ribs deeply into my spine as I roll the shoulders back and ascend the front spine from the abdomen all the way to the crown of the head. And then releasing the belt, I return to Dandasana. We'll finish the sequence today with Padangushta Dandasana. Once again, it's the concave stage of Dandasana. So from Dandasana, I reach the arms up. Inhale, lengthen the trunk. Exhale, come forward. Hold the outer edges of the feet or the belt. I pull with the arms, push with the legs, move the back ribs sharply into my back as I extend from the pubis to the navel to the crown of the head and make the front spine as long as possible. Mahalo. I hope you found this sequence useful today. See you next time.